What's up, Airsofters? Today we're taking a look at two rifles that sit right in that modern compact AR lane a lot of us find ourselves gravitating towards. The Maxim Defense MDX510 and the PDX SD. These are officially licensed Maxim Defense replicas built by VFC. And if you watched the show SEAL Team, you probably noticed Maxim rifles showing up with the Bravo team during Season 5. They've also crossed over into games like SCP Secret Lab and Gun Club VR. When a platform keeps popping up across real-world use, TV, games, and now Airsoft, it's usually because they look and perform
freaking awesome.
But before we get into how these replicas feel on the field, it helps to touch briefly on what Maxim Defense is and what they're on about on the real steel side. The Maxim Defense built their reputation around compact ARs that were designed intentionally from the start to perform best in the shortest configurations possible. Their shorter overall length, modern design flair, and higher than your average M4 receiver height, which you'll find familiar if you've shouldered a 416 before, make for an undeniably cool looking platform that backs up its aesthetics with real performance. And within the Maxim lineup, the MDX is the more traditional carbine length, whereas the PDX, which you see right in front of me, is the same idea pushed further into that compact territory. Same DNA, but slightly different priorities. The full metal billet style upper and lower receivers are cleanly machined with deep engraved Maxim markings. As I mentioned before, the upper sits a little bit taller than a standard AR, giving you that familiar 416 style sightline and rail height, which we've made even crazily higher with this optics setup. Now, this elevated rail does provide increased rigidity and gives you a more comfortable elevated sightline when shouldering, especially when you're wearing full face pro, a mask, or gas mask. Just make sure that you take that into account when you're choosing optic risers, or optics in general. The hand guards are where Maxim really does their own thing. These are not slim rails by any means, and they're not trying to be. They're purpose-built around suppressor compatibility, designed to integrate cleanly with Maxim's DSX system and other large diameter suppressors. That recessed fit gives the front end a more solid, substantial feel and visually leans into that modern, futuristic, duty-focused look. Now let's get into the specific differences between these two models. The MDX features an 11.25-inch handguard covering a 10-inch barrel and has an Airsoft version of Maxim's Hatebrake muzzle booster. The PDX features a much shorter 6.25-inch handguard paired with a 5.5-inch barrel and a shorter, larger diameter DSX mock suppressor designed specifically for the PDX. Now, importantly, the overall length, aside from the stock, the specs are the exact same between both models in terms of kind of overall length. Both models use an Airsoft version of Maxim's Gen 7 CQB stock system, which is a big part of their identity, but the execution is different between the two models. On the MDX 510, you get a slightly longer receiver extension slash buffer tube paired with a Gen 7 stock. That gives the rifle room for wiring and battery storage out back and contributes to a more traditional carbine length and balance in terms of length of pull. It's rear wired through the receiver extension slash buffer tube, with the wiring routed neatly along the bottom of that buffer tube to minimize interference with your battery. Now, that gives you plenty of flexibility with battery choice and keeps the installation straightforward without fighting in a cramped space. On the PDX SD, this one here, that same Gen 7 system is paired with a shorter PDW buttstock and shorter receiver extension. Everything is pulled in tighter, which keeps the overall footprint extremely compact and reinforces that PDW feel. It does mean, however, that the PDX is wired to the front due to those space constraints. The PDX SD uses a unique battery storage solution that makes full use of the inside space of the dummy HUB suppressor. Instead of an external battery box or awkward outside wiring, your battery lives inside the suppressor itself. And interestingly, thanks to some clever design work, you don't give up any barrel length either. The battery actually sits within the enshrouded cover of the mock suppressor with this really kind of cool floating plate design that goes around the inner barrel, giving you an excellent place to keep your battery, giving you a little bit of weight out front and not sacrificing performance due to barrel length changes. Controls are fully ambidextrous across both models. The selector, magazine release, and bolt controls are mirrored and easy to reach without breaking your grip. Switching shoulders or running support side feels pretty natural as long as you practice it. And in the hands, the MDX 510 carries much like a compact carbine. It settles up nicely when you bring it up and feels comfortable staring on target, especially on mixed outdoor fields. Personally, the PDX SD feels more compact to me, even though they're kind of the same overall length. It is a little bit shorter overall, it's easier to move with, and clearly aimed at those tighter, closer spaces in CQB game styles or CQB locations. firearms. You've also got QD sling mount points in your usual places, making the 2-point sling setups and shoulder transitions easy without having to get creative. You got a QD point back here and one up here on the handguard on either side. Internally, both of these rifles are built around VFC's ECS Gearbox version 2.1, which gives you a pretty serious foundation of performance right out of the box. You're getting reinforced internals across the board, a fiber reinforced piston and tappet plate, steel high-speed gears, a magic grade cylinder, and an 8mm high-speed bearing setup. This isn't one of those bare minimum gearboxes intended for you to throw a bunch of parts right out of the box. It's clearly built to hold up under regular use without immediately begging for those upgrades. And one of the nicer quality of life touches here is the quick release spring gearbox design. Spring changes can be done pretty quickly without tearing the whole rifle apart, and the spring guide can be accessed through the receiver extension / buffer tube. Both rifles come with a built-in Gate Aster SX, and that's a big part of how these feel when you actually start shooting. Trigger response is fast and consistent, the optical sensors handle trigger, selector, and gear position, and it's got reverse polarity protection as well as a smart electronic fuse. If you'd like to go deeper, the GCS app gives you full control over trigger sensitivity, fire modes, firmware updates, but you can also program all of those basic functions directly through the trigger if you don't want to mess with the phone handoff. Hop-up duties are handled by a pretty standard VFC hop-up unit that holds adjustment once it's set, feeding a consistent air seal for predictable performance with common BB weights. At the end of the day, the Maxim Defense MDX510 and PDX SD are extremely cool looking rifles. They look futuristic, aggressive, and intentional in a way that immediately separates them from a sea of standard M4s. Both share that comfortable elevated 416 style sightline and ergonomics, so when you shoulder them, everything feels upright and natural. They have that confident stance that makes even a short rifle feel planted instead of cramped. The MDX510 gives you more rail space to work with, more room for lights, lasers, and accessories while still keeping a compact profile, and the PDX SD trims things down even more, tightens everything up, and leans even harder into that PDW look without losing the attitude of the platform. These are not subtle rifles. They're bold, modern, a little futuristic, and they look just as good on the wall as they do on the field. You can find the Maxim Defense MDX510 and PDX SD along with everything else you need for your airsoft game like mags, BBs, batteries, and everything else right here at Evike.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the field.